First of all, I'd like to acknowledge Commissioners Koba and Strader, who are participating on Teams, and I am filling in for Commissioner Koba to chair the meeting since she is attending remotely. So welcome, Commissioners, online. First, I'd like to call for a motion and second for approval of the minutes of the regular commission meeting of August 14th, 2024.
So moved.
All right. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. Curtis, you want to provide us the executive director remarks?
I'd love to. Thank you, Madam President. Do we call you President or Vice President when you're, well, Madam President, I guess, is on the phone. No offense, President Koba. Let me first welcome our new employees. We just had a session. I got to spend some time with them last week as well. Here in the back row. Hey, crew, thank you for making the time this morning. Really good to catch up this morning and also just to have you on the port team. I'd also like to recognize our port airport fire and rescue team who are here for an item later. Thanks for making it out, crew. You all know now that we're very safe. If there's a fire, we're in very good hands, but just an outstanding crew. It's really nice to see them here in HQ. I would like to acknowledge the monthly safety champions up here. You see Paulina and John, Gabriel and Steve, just a really great bunch of employees working to keep us safe. Steve's especially interesting recognition this month because he really led the charge on organizing out at T6 with our local partners, the exercises around what happens if someone on top of a crane has an incident or if you have to get someone down from the top of a crane, including 200 feet up at the crane or out 250 feet over the water. And for those of you who've been up there, it can be kind of spooky. So just a great bunch of stories. So thank you all for the focus on safety. And if I could have Steve Danielson join us this morning. Steve's our Director of Safety, Health, and Loss Control. He's going to do our monthly safety message. And without pumping him up too much, I'll just say Steve has done a really great job for this organization. Our safety record is really exceptional, and it's really about people and staying safe. And I just am grateful that Steve is with us. So Steve, take it away. I made you nervous with that, didn't I?
Maybe a little bit. It'll be all right. Good morning. As stated, I'm Steve Danielson. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I'm the Port's Director of Safety, Health, and Loss Control. I'm stoked to be here to deliver the Commission safety message. Last time I was here was September 2023, so we have a few new faces, which is great. Our critical work in occupational safety and health is about preventing harm to employees, contingents, contractors, and the public. Safety is of paramount importance. This message serves to inform you on the Port's safety journey through fiscal year 24. As you know, fiscal year 24 closed July 1st. My team and I are proud to inform you, but it was, by all measures, a record year for safety. We experienced multiple record highs for key performance indicators of process health. Leading indicators to include person hours of safety education and training. The learning is vital. The number of hazards reported, the underlayment of our safety success. We enjoyed record reporting of safety incidents, 150 in the 12 months. Some backstory on that, we do employ an innovative ratio of incident types that we call the tornado chart metric that helps set expectations while enabling both reporting and proper management response. When you enjoy record incident reporting, you get the opportunity to perform a record number of fact-finding incident investigations, curious for systemic improvements. Challenge accepted. Those investigations lead to tracking a record number of improvement tasks in our corrective action plan tool, 562 this year, 560 last fiscal year. Executing those tasks, mitigations, control, systemic improvements, and communications serves cap closure percentage, record high of 93.3% in 12 months. So the leading indicators help our trailing indicators or outcome successes in occupational safety and health, which are often latent to the actual hard work or initiatives you employ. However, we enjoyed similar process health metrics in fiscal year 23, so we had some inertia. Combined this hard work and collaboration with people managers returned an exceptional injury reduction year in 2024 fiscal year. Near record low number of recordable injuries at 11. We had 10 in 2020, fiscal year 2020. And that low number and reduced severity of injuries leads to additional successes. For skeptics, we did have some scary incidents, near misses and property damage. Really scary. Inches or seconds from significant injury or fatality. They were promptly reported, investigated, and controls were established. On T-Core, safety leadership and engagement is a well-told story. My job billed many hours, reviewed many plans with prevention through design in mind, and put in many steps inspecting what we expect, while consulting with leadership that led to those OSIP successes to date. I also want to thank, in the back of the room, all the port managers, leaders, and employees for their diligence and focus on safe performance. At the port, we view safety as a continuous process and a leading indicator of operational excellence. Fiscal year 25 business line and enterprise safety plans are constructed and employed. And 2 months in, we are seeing the same vector of success that started last year, and we're maturing our safety management system. We're having some fun too. So be safe, healthy, and well.
Perfect. Thank you, Steve. Steve is also, I should say, a hockey player. So that stay safe is intended both for himself and the rest of us. I do want to acknowledge the aircraft accident that occurred in Fairview on August 31st. A general aviation aircraft, I think as folks are aware, that took off from Troutdale Airport, crashed into a residential complex and killed not only the 2 people on board, but also someone in that complex. Our fire and rescue team was deployed, as were other local emergency responders, Gresham Fire Department, Multnomah County Sheriff's Office. And when accidents like this happen, first, you need to recognize the tragedy and the loss, but also the impact on the community. And that community has really been feeling the presence of the airport and is, I would say, shocked more than anything else. The NTSB, the National Transportation Safety Board, is on the case. This is in the FAA and the NTSB's remit. We don't really have anything to do with the investigation as the property owner where the plane took off, but I do think it's important for us to recognize the impact our facilities have in the community, whether it's direct or indirect, and I just wanted to share that with you today. On the, I would say, on the happier side of the ledger, we did hear earlier this week from Senators Merkley and Wyden that the FAA is awarding PDX $8.7 million for HVAC updates and upgrades. Really helps us with our energy efficiency story on site. It comes from the FAA's Airport Improvement Program, AIP, which is fueled by the bipartisan infrastructure law, the bill. We're just really thrilled that this is an ongoing support coming from the federal government for our infrastructure throughout the port and in particular at PDX. It's going to update the airport's older heating, cooling, and electrical systems. We're just thrilled and appreciate our delegation helping push that through. And then finally, on September 30th, so later this month, Kimberly Branham is going to join the port team as our new Chief Trade and Economic Development Officer. I know several of you know her. She's run Prosper Portland since 2016. She's really been an outstanding partner for the past 8 or 10 years for us, and she's really spectacular. I know the executive team is really thrilled to have her on board. We had an extensive process, including a really diverse pool, interviews by not only direct reports, but also peers in the executive team. And we just are really pleased to have her joining. It's going to be really terrific. We have her first many weeks plotted out already. It's going to be a steep learning curve, in particular around the marine business, which she will immediately drop into. So with that, Madam Vice President, thank you for the time this morning.
Thank you. Any questions? Any questions or comments? Making sure I recognize Commissioner Strader and Kova. Questions or comments? All right, well, with that, I'll call for a motion to approve the Executive Director's Report.
So moved.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. So we did not receive any requests for public comments this month, so we'll be moving into the general agenda. So I'd like to call on John Cardenas and Mina Mora Gonzalez to present the first agenda item.
Thank you for having us. Is this on? There we go. Thank you for having us. Chair, President, Executive Director Robin Holt, and Commissioners. It's so very nice to see you today. Today, what we are presenting is a little bit of recognition and a small very, very quick presentation about the importance of Hispanic Heritage Month and how we are honoring both our staff and some of our local leaders from around our region specifically. My name is John Cardenas. I'm a Port employee now, and I've been here a year and a half, and it's been absolutely my pleasure. There's my face. In fact, I'm wearing the same clothes. That's interesting. Hold on. Let me see if I can. I'm in charge of our inclusive contracting and small business development department. So basically what I tell people, my job is to make sure that we've got people of color and women-owned businesses working on all of our projects all the time, and that we're monitoring that behavior, we're monitoring that activity, we're making sure that we're being as inclusive as possible. And today's presentation talks very specifically about our roots in our Hispanic culture around the region. So we have a presentation that we're going to start. I'm going to read a lot of this because there's so much here. As we commemorate Hispanic Heritage Month, we want to take a moment to celebrate the rich cultural contributions and diverse backgrounds of our Hispanic employees here at the Port of Portland. And the Latinx and Friends Resource Group extends and appreciates to each of you for the unique perspectives and valuable contributions you bring to our workplace, which in turn positively impact our broader community. Before I go any further, I forgot to let Mina introduce herself.
My name is Mina Mora Gonzalez. Is it on? Okay, there we go. Sorry. My name is Mina Mora Gonzalez, and I am with the Community Impact Team. I'm the program coordinator for our team, and I am also the chair of the Latinx and Friends. So I'm just here to support all our employees that are represent themselves as Hispanic Latinos, and just uplift them and see how we can support them. So
now we can go to that first slide, please. First, we want to introduce you to Celdonio Sonny Montes Jr. Sonny was born in Texas and moved to Oregon in 1966, and he began his career here as a migrant farm worker, and he soon took on a really big role with the Valley Migrant League. Eventually, he became the director of Hillsborough Opportunity Center. Though initially recognized as a migrant farm worker, Sonny gained broader acclaim as an educator and activist during the Chicano movement, advocating tirelessly for Mexican-American community in Oregon. He played a pivotal role in efforts to preserve Colegio Cesar Chavez, which was the first school that served Latino students at higher education level in the country. And he worked to inspire Chicano students, particularly those who were first-generation college attendees. Even after the college closed, Sonny's commitment to education advocacy endured. He established a student leadership conference specifically for Latino students and continues to support programs for Latino students at public universities. I am one of the beneficiaries of Sonny's work, and I have much respect for the man. Next slide, please. This is Lita Garside. She's another trailblazer that we are lucky to have in our region. From an early age, Lita had a passion for helping others, which led her to a career in nursing. After her career at Providence Hospital in Anchorage, Alaska, she moved to Oregon, where she worked as a registered nurse, eventually joining Tuality in occupational health. Lita's commitment to using her language skills and her cultural background to serve the community led her to Salud. Salud is a mobile wellness outreach program that provides accessible health care to Oregon vineyard workers, most of whom are Hispanic immigrants. Lita's work has been instrumental in bridging gaps within the healthcare system, and she remains a staunch advocate for the communities she serves. Today, as we recognize Hispanic pioneers of change, we reaffirm our commitment to uplifting and making space for Hispanic leaders who are shaping the world that we are all inspired by and that we live in. Let's continue to celebrate, learn from one another, and support Hispanic culture this month and throughout the year. Now, the only part of the speech she was willing to do.
I'm horrible at public speaking. So with that, Feliz Mes de la Hacienda Hispana and Happy Hispanic Heritage Month for everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you both for sharing those inspirational stories. I love the vibrancy that it brings to the port and understanding the great work that you do to make this an inclusive place for everyone. So thank you so much. Any questions or comments? To the commission? Okay. All right, then we'll move to the first official agenda item, and Beverly Pearman will come to introduce that first agenda item.
Priority 2.
Right on cue. Good morning, everyone. I'm Beverly Pearman. I'm the Director of Public Safety and Security, and filling in today for Dan Pippinger, our Chief Aviation Officer. It's my privilege to introduce this item. What I'd like to highlight is the way that labor and management came together for these contract negotiations. They met in the beginning to align on some objectives for the contract itself, and I just wanted to highlight a few of those. One, which Heather will discuss more, she's going through the presentation, was an agreement to discuss alternative work schedules that would support a culture of health, wellness, and work-life balance. The team agreed they wanted to create and maintain avenues for leadership development for folks coming up through the department. We have, I think, over 40% of the folks in the fire department now have been here less than 5 years. So it really does create a great opportunity for leadership development. There are also some key departments that we wanted to focus on that, like the fire marshal's office and the training and inspections divisions, to make sure that they were getting the support that they needed and also were on par with other agencies in terms of compensation. They wanted to support the logistical needs of the department and ensure minimum staffing, and then also just make sure across the department that wages, again, were in line with what we're seeing at comparable agencies. So it led to a very collaborative and efficient bargaining process that was done in just a few months' time, which doesn't always happen with some of our groups. So I'm very appreciative of the way the labor and management came together and led to, I think, a strong contract, which Heather will now walk you through. Thank you, Bev.
It is. Okay, great. I'm Heather Chow, and I'm the Director of Human Resources. My pronouns are she, hers. I want to echo what Bev said about labor and management coming together. We have some of our members of the fire team here, and I just want to acknowledge them for the partnership and the collaboration. This process this time around was really inspiring from the perspective that everyone reached across the aisle together to work through the issues and arrive at the terms that we have today. So I'm here to present some of those terms. So next slide. So starting with the wages, we have a 4-year contract, 2% retroactive in year 1 and 2% in year 2. And then for years, the out years 3 and 4, we're looking at a range of 1 to 5%, depending on what the CPI index is. Next slide. To what Bev said about the work-life balance, the team agreed that it's time to take a look at our schedule and potentially introduce a 4th platoon. So they've mutually agreed on a working committee for the next year to work through what that could look like. And the opportunity would be that work-life balance that Bev has mentioned. In the event that we can come to that agreement, then we would eliminate the Kelly days. The other highlights include premium pay. We want to recognize our apparatus operators with an additional increase of 3%, so from 3 to 6%. And then for our non-emergency operations employees, we want to give them a 3% AO premium pay. And then from a market comp perspective, we realize that we have some opportunities with some of these positions that are listed up there, the lieutenant, captain, battalion chief, and fire marshal, that we're not exactly where we want to be from a market compensation perspective. So we agreed to an increase in premium pay for these positions. And we also agreed to an increase in the water rescue program incentive by 2%. And then we rounded off some of the economics with additional holiday for some of the positions that currently are not receiving 2 times holiday pay. So we have 6 holidays where they're getting 2 times holiday pay, but there's 3 additional that they currently are not. And so we've agreed to that addition. Next slide. So the net result is over the life of the contract, the increase is 3.7 mil. Last slide. So we request approval to enter into a 4-year agreement with the International Association of Firefighters, Portland Firefighters Association, beginning July 1, 2024. Thank you.
Thank you. I love hearing about the cooperation. It feels consistent with this culture, and really happy to hear that the negotiations went smoothly. Any questions or comments from the commission? Yes, go ahead.
I just want to call out and thank you all as first responders. We've had a lot of action here at PDX in the last, let's just say, year. And so a lot of that really we don't even hear about. And so thank you for all the work that you on the day-to-day basis to keep passengers and employees safe.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to just echo that. I think it is just vitally important to the operations of PDX. But I have just one question. The increase in the water rescue program, is that a voluntary program versus a standard program, which is the reason why you have an incentive for it?
I don't know if I can speak to all the details of it, but it is ones that individuals have to apply for, and they have to go through a lot of intensive training to be able to do it, to qualify for the water rescue program. So it's viewed as some of the other conditions where we do pay a premium because they're taking on additional responsibilities and duties and trainings.
Okay, perfect. Makes sense. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Right. With that, call for a motion and a second to approve the executive director's recommendation. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes. Congratulations. Thank you. All right, next we have Christina Kelchner, to introduce the next agenda item.
Good morning, commissioners. I'm Christina Kelchner. Light is on. Okay, great. Good morning, commissioners. I'm Christina Kelchner, Chief Development Services Officer. And thank you for accommodating all of us up here. In the Development Services Division, we're really focusing on teamwork, building a cohesive team. And so we have several members of staff here as well from the Environmental Department, Planning, Development, and Engineering, because it really is a team effort to bring these capital projects forward. So today we have for you the replacement of some of our passenger boarding bridges. If anyone's not familiar with the airport aviation terminology, that just means the tunnel that gets you from the terminal out to your aircraft. We have about 45 total of these passenger boarding bridges at PDX, and most of those were installed in the late 1990s, so they are nearing the end of their useful life. In 2017, we started a program to systematically replace those as funding becomes available, and prioritize those based on the need and how much useful life is left of those bridges. There is an environmental benefit to replacing these bridges as we're able to. The new technology allows the planes to not be idling at the gates, and you'll hear more about that from our project managers here more more detail. So we're pleased to be able to do this, and also just congratulations to staff for getting FAA funding. We really appreciate our federal partners, and as Curtis mentioned, that federal funding that's coming in from the infrastructure law really makes a difference here for our airport infrastructure. So with that, I'm very pleased to turn it over to Terry Burke, our development manager, and Joanna Ambrose, our project manager, who will give you details of the project.
All right, first slide. Good morning. We're here to request approval to award a public improvement contract to Aero Bridge Works for the passenger boarding bridge replacement project in the amount of approximately $11.2 million. Next slide. So as Christina mentioned, the passenger boarding bridges are really key infrastructure for the operation of flights here at PDX. It allows for a safe, accessible means to transport passengers between the terminal and the aircraft, and in a climate-controlled environment, which is appreciated here in the Northwest sometimes. Based on our asset management assessment of the bridges, where we consider things such as age of the bridge, the usage, the maintenance cost, parts availability, and reliability of the bridge, as well as the funding available, we've prioritized 8 boarding bridges for replacement with this project. These bridges were installed between the mid-1990s and early 2000s as part of various expansion projects at the airport. And since about 2017, we've programmatically been replacing bridges of this era. Currently, we've replaced about half the bridges, and with this project, we'll be up to about 70% of those bridges. As mentioned, in addition to the reliability benefit of replacing these bridges, there are also environmental and energy efficiency benefits, as well as ensuring that we're meeting the latest Americans with Disabilities Act standards for passengers. As part of our overall passenger boarding bridge program, the other thing that we've done is ensure that all of our passenger boarding bridges have preconditioned air units. Back in 2017, we received VAIL funding from FAA for 26 preconditioned air units for bridges that didn't currently have those units. Those units essentially allow the aircraft to use electricity to condition the cabin when they're at the gate versus relying on burning jet fuel. So, which has obvious benefits for our emission reduction goals here at PDX. Another benefit of this project is with the timing of this project and with the Terminal Core project, Terminal Core removed several bridges in order to do their construction work, and they are under contract to reinstall those bridges. Well, we'll be able to provide Terminal Core new bridges for reinstallation rather than older failing bridges. So. And as mentioned, we'll have about 30% of our bridges that are still of this late 90s, early 2000s era, and we'll continue to monitor those through our asset management program and replace those based on future condition and as funding becomes available. Next slide. There's an example of passenger boarding bridges if for folks' reference. Next slide. So as mentioned, we're very thankful for the bipartisan infrastructure law, and it has provided us with significant funding through the program and with federal infrastructure grants. For this particular project, we applied for and were awarded an FAA Airport Terminals Program grant in the amount of approximately $8.2 million. The grant funding covers replacement of the 8 boarding bridges. The grant requires a minimum 20% match from the port on those eligible costs. And for this particular project, the eligible costs are construction costs. So with that, I'll turn it over to Joanna Ambrose.
Thank you, Terry. We can go to the next slide, please. So I'm here to talk about the scope associated with these passenger boarding bridges. As Terry had mentioned, the scope is to take and purchase 8 new bridges, and 4 of those bridges will be installed by the passenger boarding bridge project, and 4 of those bridges will be passed over to the T-Corps project for them to install per their original contract. So nothing to do with our contract other than they get new bridges, a bonus to them. That the scope will also include the removal of all of the old equipment. Each of these bridges will have additional parts and pieces to them. So they have what you call preconditioned air units, as Terry had mentioned, which is basically an air conditioner to help climate control the aircraft and the bridge. And then there's also the ground power unit, and that is essentially a magical piece of equipment that converts power from the bridge to the building so that we aren't using additional jet fuels and things like that to maneuver the aircraft. The additional component there is the IOPS system, which is more of a computer diagnostic system, which that system really is beneficial to the port. It really helps maintain the bridges with real-time information back to the port regarding the condition of the bridge, as well as it helps the aircraft operators and the bridge operators better align the bridge. So it reduces a lot of risk and helps them turn around the aircraft a lot quicker. So it's a great package. Next slide, please. Here is the layout of PDX, and it shows the locations of those 8 bridges that we're purchasing. The bridges in purple are the bridges that the passenger boarding bridge project will purchase and install as part of the project. And that's anticipated that work will happen next summer. And then the red bridges need to wait until further in the T-Corps construction process once the bypasses are removed. And that will happen 2 summers from now. So summer of 26 is the plan. So fingers crossed that everything goes per T-Corps schedule. Next slide, please. So here we are today. We've done all of our background legwork and design, and we are here for commission approval. As I mentioned, construction is planned to happen over the next 2 summers. Next slide, please. The overall construction contract came in at just a little over $11.2 million out of the total budget of the $18.8 million overall budget. As Terry had mentioned, it's got the federal funding, and we had a DBE goal of 1%, and the contractor was able to come in at 1.8%. Next slide. So we are here today to request approval of the director's recommendation for this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Seems like a really great project with a lot of direct and indirect benefits. Any questions or comments from the commission? Yes, go ahead. Yeah.
I think it's a great project. I fly a lot and I love getting off the plane and a cool bridge, but just some questions. So did we look at whether buying new versus a retrofit was the right path forward? Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say we did indeed. And the challenge with the bridges that are currently installed are that the parts and pieces are becoming obsolete and are no longer available. So the maintenance crews are literally robbing from bridges that have been taken out of service to keep these bridges active.
Okay, because a retrofit and an upgrade isn't necessarily using the exact same pieces and parts. So I think just from the perspective of when we think through major infrastructure changes, the replace new versus the retrofit upgrade. Would love to just maybe see what that analysis looked like.
We actually did look at that originally with this project. A couple challenges with the retrofit. With the FAA grant, we have to be able to ensure 20-year useful life.
Okay.
We don't have a whole lot of experience with retrofits on bridges, so there was some uncertainty around that, as well as the time it takes at the gate to do a retrofit versus a new install, where getting these gates back up to operations was an important piece of this project. So retrofit would take, maybe 3 weeks at a gate versus a new install, which is about a week. So there was concern around that too.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So no, thanks for that clarity, because it's always a balance between, whether or not you can afford to buy new versus retrofit. And sounds like there are some tenets in the grant funding that required you to comprehend useful life. So, okay, perfect. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you for working through all the details, including, doing the financial analysis on the retrofit. One is a contracting question, which is, as we go through these replacements, do we go through a competitive bid process in terms of getting multiple vendors, or is it always going back to the same vendor? So that's one question. The other one is in terms of, women and minority-owned businesses, the target of 1%. Could you kind of elaborate on that compared to other targets that is rather low? And so I'd like to understand.
Yes. Now I forgot the first question.
The competitive
bid, yes. So during the design process, we reached out. The FAA grant requires to use American products. And so there are 2 manufacturers within the United States. So we worked with both of those to make sure that we had equal opportunities for both types of bridges to be installed. So we worked through that. We took and reached out to them right at the beginning of the bidding process as well, so that they could get together their teams. We had quite a bit of conversation back and forth and questions from a variety of bidders. However, I think due to the existing circumstances with a lot of construction activities out there, we did not get as many bids as we had hoped to see on that front. But I mean, we really tried to engage them.
So there, if I'm understanding correctly, there are 2 major vendors, and we got bids from the 2 vendors. Is that, or
we only received 1 bid. Both were active during the bidding process, so I'm not sure why 1 vendor did not bid. You can add to that?
Well, I was just going to move to the second question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. So, yes, so the second question regarding the 1% DBE goal is specifically due to the fact that these are a material, they are a piece of mechanical equipment. We need to go to those 2 American manufacturers of those products, which really, there's only 2, and they are not small business oriented, which is a bulk of the project. There is specialty work within, or there are small business opportunities, and the bidder did utilize small businesses for all of the upgrades to the power and the data that need to be done within the building to connect to the new bridges. As well as they did go above and beyond that, and there are a few components that they can add to their bridge, or that they're included in the bridge, that do use small businesses. So that's how they were able to exceed our 1% and get to an even higher goal.
Commissioner Sompat, I appreciate the question very much, and this is an unusually low target goal for us. So we did have a lot of conversation about that. And if the commission is interested, I'd like to call up our contracts and procurement small business group who can speak a little bit more. This is a specialized and unique piece of equipment and service, but we do really work hard on our availability analysis and understanding just what's available in the market when we set our targets. So I'd like to call up Bobby or John.
We're going to tag team. Right. 2 for 1.
Hello again, John Cardenas, Inclusive Contracting and Small Business Development. 1% is low. 1.8% is low. The recognition of the uniqueness of the equipment and the gear, that speaks to who we have available in the market. There are just not enough BIPOC or women-owned businesses in these categories. That's where the work lies. Understanding what our availability is in our region is also critical. And right now, for those who don't know, we are in the midst of a disparity study. And in that disparity study, a significant component of that study is an availability analysis that will help to identify and determine who is in our market, who can provide services and scopes of work that we need that are critical to our work. The last disparity study that we had and the last availability study that we are working off of is from 2018. And as you might imagine, the COVID effect is real. And it had a pretty devastating effect, particularly around BIPOC and women-owned businesses. So now this new availability analysis is going to highlight who is in our area, who's in our region, who can we pull from. As we start to rebuild the compliance efforts that we've got here, I'm putting particular emphasis on relationship building and understanding who folks are, bringing people in, getting to know people on a very relational basis, so that when opportunities like this come up, we can suss out where they're at in their business acumen and their ability to contribute to any of the opportunities that we have here at the port. So I know 1% is low, 1.8% is low too, but I'm happy that we're even there. If you all knew of any other organizations that might be able to contribute to this opportunity, by all means. But Bobby's got some more information about how we're getting there.
Thanks very much. There. Yeah, thanks very much, John. I think Joanna and Terry both alluded to the fact that the majority of this particular contract was the purchase of the equipment itself. And so that also lended, or contributed to the fact that the goal was relatively low. As you're looking at the contract itself, the subcontracting opportunities, there were only 2 or 3, but one of those was electrical and specialty electrical. So we're going to, go ahead and target that in the future. I guess on the good news side, a lot of the contractors that would typically be available are working on T-Core. So, we're our own worst enemy at this particular place with that. But other than that, we continue to do our outreach. This is a DBE contractor, so that helps us meet our federal goal requirements as well. But thank you for the question. We always love to answer these kind of things and focus.
And thank you for the answer. And I'm glad to see that there's a systemic effort to look at this beyond this project, but in terms of, building availability and maybe a bench for the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that follow-up. I had just one additional question. I wonder, yes. I noticed there was a fairly large proportional contingency to the project, and if you wouldn't mind just talking through for us anticipated or potential issues that would warrant such a large contingency for the project?
Absolutely. Is it on now? Okay, absolutely. This is a really tricky project. Not only is it working and coordinating with the T-Core project, which may or may not delay some of the timing within the delivery of the passenger boarding bridges and the installation of those bridges. There's also some unknowns yet regarding the foundations. So we believe there won't be any additional foundation modifications. Our plan is to unbolt and bolt on a new one. So we think we're good there. We're waiting for that verification. This is also specialty equipment, but it isn't just off the shelf equipment. So you need to take, and there are Port of Portland bridge requirements and desires that we put into the contract. So we need to take and make sure that the contractor actually provided and installed what we wanted. And sometimes there are some bugs that we have to work through in regards to that. And we will also have some potential concerns or complications because we are putting new bridges on, which should attach to the foundation as planned. However, we are tying into some existing tunnels and existing jetway doors. And so there could be some unforeseen complications at those connection points as well.
Okay, thank you.
And I'd just like to add, Commissioner Lewis, that we do take a risk-based approach for setting our contingencies based on each project. So Joanna's just walked you through here some of the timing and equipment and unknown site conditions that we have. But yeah, we are looking at our contingencies overall for our programs to make sure that those are, and working with finance to make sure those are serving us well.
Great, thank you. Any additional comments or questions?
Yeah. Well, I just out of curiosity, I just want to ask, first of all, are we allowed to sell ad on these tunnels to for marketing purposes? I mean, to recruit some investment for the next 20 years?
Why don't I take that one if I can, Madam President, and Commissioner. We have a contract inside the airport terminal for advertising, that is I would say a standalone contract. It also restricts what we can do, what belongs to the advertiser, and they pay us for that right to advertise in the terminal. We're also relatively, as I think you know, restrictive on what we allow in the terminal because we don't want folks to be bombarded with constant sort of flashing signage, for example. But happy to bring that forward and sort of show you the nature. I don't know the answer about inside the Vince, because Dan's not here, the rights extend into the passenger boarding. Yeah, we'll have a look at that. It's a great question.
And then secondly, I saw in here the ACDB points. I mean, it was so low based on the equipment, but well, what about the installation? Is there any opportunity where we can gain that?
Yeah, I think that we did talk about that in terms of the electrical engineering needed and the contractors that are needed. And as our other team mentioned, several of those contractors are actually already working on the T-Core project. So they just in our market, there's just only so much availability. But that is absolutely an area that we're looking to how we can build capacity.
Great. Thank you.
Team, Madam President, it does strike me that we might want to bring in front of Commission both around contingency and around the expectation of our minority contracting efforts, just so you all understand, and we've got a bunch of new faces as well, how we think of that and the risk-based. They're the same questions I was asking when I joined the port is, hang on a second, this number seems big. And I sit here thinking that money actually reverts to us, but it would be useful, I think, for us to come to all of you and share a broader picture about how we think about this in our own processes. So we'll put that on the future agenda.
Yeah, absolutely. And these were the questions we were hoping for. So the commission does not disappoint. So thank you.
That's good.
Great, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Yeah.
Is that a holistic look at all projects and contingencies and what's been realized and what's not?
Yeah, happy to do that.
Okay.
We have a pretty good record at it, and I'm thinking once we exceeded our contingency, but it's really a risk-based, so it narrows, early on with high risk and a little understanding, it's at 40% of our estimate. and it narrows over time as you're in final execution. The contingency is narrowing to 10% or 5%. But we'll bring you a sort of the view of how we do this organizationally. We've got now with the project and PDX Next, we're essentially in 2 buckets of project work, but we're happy to obviously be transparent about how we've done in both those buckets. Good.
Thank you. I think that'd be valuable for the commission to
It's terrific.
understand. Thank you so much for your presentation. With that, I'll entertain a motion second for approval of the executive director's recommendation. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you very much. And with that, that's all we have for the agenda today. And so I will adjourn the meeting.
Just like that.
Good, thanks.
No round of applause for that item.
Thank you. Have a great day.